It is time for the big finale. What happens to Jill Valentine, Nemesis, and all of Raccoon City? Good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it is for you. Welcome to this thing that I do called Thor's Entertainment. I am Thor, and today I am wrapping up my playthrough of the Inferno mode of the remake of Resident Evil 3. In the previous episode, we had Jill get the vaccination for the T-virus. She would then wake up in the Spencer Memorial Hospital inside of Raccoon City, and then be alerted to the fact that the entire city is going to be destroyed, with one stipulation. If she can acquire the vaccine for the T-virus and provide it to the government, they might call off the airstrike. After that, Jill found out that Umbrella has a secret laboratory underneath the hospital, and it may have been used for researching a vaccine. So she is going down there and looking around for any sign of a vaccine or any way of reproducing one. When the previous episode concluded, Tyrell, one of the people that's been assisting her and Carlos throughout the entire game, he showed up to assist her one more time. That is going to be it for the story recap. From a challenge perspective, I'm just trying to beat the game without using infinite ammo weapons or anything from the shop, and I am trying to beat the game in a time that is going to be good enough for the S ranking. So let's go ahead and get started and finish this thing off. Next up is going to be the hardest and final part of the game, which is only going to be made harder by the fact that I'm now facing a really strict time constraint, because I wasted a little bit too much time in the early game. So I now have to play really risky and die a bunch of times just so I can get through this next part as fast as possible.
We'll find the vaccine up ahead.
So yeah, what we are watching now is the successful attempt that I had, which took me days to accomplish. Because like I said, I had to be really risky when going through this area just to shave off as much time as I could. Otherwise, I was not going to beat the game in under 2 hours.
Sure you don't need to stop?
Stop and do what? I got your back.
All right, let's get this done. Tyrell! No! Keep going. We're almost there. No! Shit!
After seeing that cutscene while editing, I did come to a realization I feel the need to point out. Because I cannot get through a full playthrough of anything without getting a little bit sidetracked or going on some kind of a tangent. At least this time the conversation is going to stay related to the game I'm playing. So Nemesis just showed up and killed Tyrell as he and Jill were entering the secret underground Umbrella laboratory. I always thought Nemesis just showing up out of nowhere was super convenient timing, considering that Jill had to take a gigantic elevator way underground to get to this location. So keeping that in mind, where the hell did Nemesis come from? Also keep in mind, he was way ahead of Jill. He was already in that hallway that Jill and Tyrell walked into before Tyrell died. So where did he come from? So since he was ahead of them, how did he know to come down here? Now those are already some really solid questions that we never really get any answers to, but that isn't even the thing that tripped me up to get me onto this tangent. No, what did that was when I realized that Jill was unconscious and like a sneeze away from Nemesis for roughly 12 hours, like half a day. And I have the screenshot in the background right now. She was infected, unconscious, and defenseless, so why the hell did he not kill her then? And I thought to myself, well, maybe Nemesis was still unconscious too. But no, as you can see, his body clearly moved and he's no longer in the scene whenever Carlos shows up. Now I get that he infected Jill, but his job was to kill her, not just infect her. And Nemesis is basically a mindless drone that just follows orders, so it's not like he could just change his mind about the task he was given. Then I thought, well, maybe Nemesis was looking for a way around the gate at the same time Carlos showed up, and the two of them just managed to get away from the area before Nemesis could reach them. But that still doesn't entirely make sense because Jill was still unconscious and defenseless right by the front lobby of the hospital. And the doors were not locked because Tyrell just walks in later no problem. And for a lot of that time, Carlos was trying to look for the vaccine. So no one was there guarding Jill. She was unconscious from September 30th to October 1st. I'll just go ahead and call that another 12 hours. During that time, Nemesis could have just walked in, broke her neck, and walked right back out, and no one really would have known until Carlos came back with the vaccine, and then he realized, oh wait, maybe I should have locked that door. Then there was my last benefit of the doubt. Maybe Nemesis did not follow them to the hospital and just took him a while to track down Jill. But that still doesn't really make sense either because he somehow managed to get underground before Jill and Tyrell. So clearly he knew where they were, so much so that he was able to ambush them. I would not go as far as to call this a plot hole, but it doesn't really make any sense either. And I just really wanted to point it out. So my question for anyone watching is, what the hell was Nemesis doing for the last 24 hours instead of just killing Jill? That is pretty egregious considering that is the most defenseless she ends up being the entire game. So I am curious what everyone thinks. What was more important to Nemesis that caused him to go off and do his own thing? Back to the risky gameplay, and what I mean by risky is I'm going to be trying to rush through the labs as much as I can, killing enemies only when absolutely necessary, and I tried dodging almost everything. Now I am openly not great at dodging, so surviving until the next save point is going to be pretty difficult. And besides getting by all the zombies and monsters inside the labs, I still have the second hardest boss battle in the game standing between me and the very next save point.
Override key successfully generated.
What have we here?
Override key removed.
So I have that difficulty to look forward to, but it's not just reaching the next save point that is going to be hard. The real difficulty is trying to reach it by the 1 hour and 55 minute mark, which gives me about 16 minutes. Or faster, so I have at least 5 minutes to beat the final boss. If I had less than 5 minutes, I feared that I would not have enough time to finish the game in under 2 hours. So yeah, doing all of this before the 1 hour and 55 minute mark was pretty rough, and it took me a few days to pull off. From here I duck into the safe room so the palehead zombie becomes docile, and I also pick up the high-grade gunpowder before moving on to the document. This document is Nest 2 employee regulations, and it says, attention Nest 2 employees. The objectives of this T-Virus research facility differ from those of Umbrella's main Nest facility. Here we focus on real-world use cases which arise as new bioweapons are created and introduced, such as the need for T-Virus vaccines, and new weaponry capable of suppressing bioweapons. Some aspects of our work here can be dangerous, so it is imperative that all employees adhere to workplace regulations without fail. In particular, unauthorized entry by unapproved visitors, or the removal of work-related data or materials will be met with severe disciplinary measures. It is a great honor to be part of the finest research organization in the world. Keep this in mind and stick to the rules as we forge new and revolutionary technologies. We already have an override key to get around the unauthorized entry measures, so we are good to go there, but we still need to find a way to get more vaccines. That document implied that we're in the right place to do that, but I accidentally skipped the document that explained how exactly to get the vaccine. Well, we need to make it ourselves. Around Nest 2 we can find an antigen and an adjuvant. We need to combine those together and then use a machine to synthesize those into a vaccine. The first of those ingredients is going to be up these stairs. I go ahead and shoot this zombie with one of the mines. 2 of those mines should end up killing it. Then I end up dodging the palehead zombie on the stairs and running all the way up to the room at the very top. I stop just short of going into the room, that way I can shoot the zombie that's on the ground in the head. As it is getting to its feet, I shoot it until it falls back onto the ground. I then run all the way into the closet over here. That way it makes the outside zombies docile and it gives me free shots at the zombie on the ground so I can kill it for good. Up here is the weaponry authorization request, which says, Dear Dr. Emerson, I would like to formally request that the weaponry normally reserved for the bioweapon synthesis team be made available to any employees interfacing with the admission and dismissal of test subjects. These test subjects do not present the same levels of danger as our bioweapon products, but I believe that this weaponry authorization is advisable as outlined below. Recently, some test subjects have developed a new mutation granting them very high regrowth abilities. Our team refers to these specimens as paleheads. They have been appearing with regularity, but the specific cause has not yet been determined. The astonishing rate at which these paleheads regenerate makes it difficult to deliver a lethal blow with standard weaponry. If any sort of system failure were to occur within our facility, we would be woefully unprepared to defend ourselves. For this reason, I would like to request that high-powered weaponry capable of subduing the paleheads be issued to all employees working in shipping and processing. This will ensure that, in the event of an emergency, we will be able to quickly eliminate the threat and evacuate safely. Thank you very much for your consideration. Shipping and Processing Manager Gabriel Reed. That was just a quick way of letting us know that the palehead zombies are going to be plentiful and difficult to kill here in Nest. Also, it clues us in on advanced weapons being around here somewhere, but we will get to that later. For now, we have the very first ingredient for the vaccine and we need to get back down the stairs. The palehead zombies that I left behind on the stairs will start approaching the door as soon as it opens. I do not want to waste any ammunition, so I have to dodge both of them. Oddly enough, the first one is usually the only one that's difficult to get by, the second one always seemed to be a little bit easier for me. And I very quickly grabbed the document at the bottom of the stairs. It is titled the shipping notice. They were shipping cargo named Nemesis, and it says all transit within the United States is to be made via helicopter. Take extreme caution during takeoff and landing, as shock to the parcel may potentially lead to self-activation. We here at the European branch are excited to hear your thoughts and evaluation of this newest prototype. We are pleased to offer this specimen to you for testing. It has been through numerous trials and possesses incredible destructive power. So please exercise extreme caution when using it. Signed by the lead developer, Dr. Herman Frank. Which I guess means we now know who to cuss out about Nemesis. From here, I just peek around this corner as quickly as I can so I do not alert the palehead zombie. I line up my shot, I get a clear headshot, and I get out of there before the other two palehead zombies can catch up to me. I grab the high-grade gunpowder in the corner, and then I move into this room. There's going to be another palehead that starts standing up, and as soon as he is on his feet, I have lined up my shot, and one more headshot, and the zombie goes down. I'm going to try and avoid using any more of my magnum ammo because I want to conserve as much of it as I can for the future boss fight. But those two zombies can be kind of problematic, and I wanted to get them out of the way. What makes them somewhat more important than the others is because they are also parasite zombies. So you have parasite palehead zombies. But you can kill them before the parasite appears, which is why I was using the lightning hawk to guarantee the kill. Outside of that, I made sure to grab some acid rounds, and also pick up some explosive powder B. Downstairs we can find a power core that needs to be shoved into place, and directly behind that, after it's in place, I grab a first aid spray. In the next room that we just unlocked, we are going to find some explosive powder A, and I also go out of my way to start combining the powders together. I use 2 of the explosive B to make some more acid rounds, and I also use my high-grade gunpowder to make some more magnum rounds. And unfortunately, probably the biggest highlight in this room would be all the capsuled hunters and tyrants, like Mr. X-style tyrants. And what's unfortunate about this is, as cool as it is, I'm in a hurry, so I don't really get to take the time to observe it and really show it off in this video. But this room is pretty cool, and it gives you an idea of where Mr. X came from before he appeared in Resident Evil 2. Up ahead, we have 2 palehead zombies and 2 parasite zombies that are going to be flooding out of a room. I'm using the mine rounds to knock them down, and man, the palehead zombie just ate that shit. Anyway, the idea here is to keep them on the ground. I'm not too worried about actually killing them, but I want to keep them away from me as best as I can, and the mine rounds are pretty good at staggering them and knocking them away from me. Within the room, I end up finding the last ingredient I need for the vaccine, as well as some more explosive A. And I also find a very interesting document. This one is titled Expression of Concern. And it says, Senior Fellow Dr. Frank, please allow me to send my heartfelt congratulations to you and your colleagues at Umbrella Europe for completing Nemesis. A truly remarkable achievement in the field of bioweapons research. Introducing a parasitic organism into a tyrant's brain to gain external control of it? How can I not marvel at such a wild idea? However, from a medical perspective, I must emphatically state my disapproval of this shift away from the established Umbrella policy. By turning to the use of parasites, you are setting a dangerous precedent. Viruses can be kept in check. I believe an effective vaccine can be developed for any virus on Earth, with abundant funding and a bounty of samples, of course. Can you say the same for parasites, however? Doctors have tried in vain to develop a vaccine for malaria. Parasites like Plasmodium are far more genetically complex than the T-virus, and to think they will submit to control is utter folly. Perhaps in your country, consumers are willing to buy automobiles with no brakes, but here in America, they know better. Then again, I recall you have a degree in economics, so no doubt you have already devised a brilliant marketing strategy to win over the naysayers. I look forward to your talk at the forum in Berlin next month. In the meantime, I shall be exploring medical solutions to this hubristic problem that you foisted on us. Sincerely, Nathaniel Bard, PhD. Given what we know about how reckless Nathaniel Bard has been, when he's telling you something is a terrible idea, it might be time to stop doing it. But yeah, this is how we got Nemesis. And I do kind of go out of my way to get the documents in this game. I don't get all of them, like I admit, I forgot one earlier. But I do try just so I can make these videos a little bit more interesting and expand the lore a little bit. However, going for that document got me killed in that room more times than probably anything else in this lab area. I think the only thing that has it beat is the next boss. Even these hunters ambushing me was nowhere near as much of a threat as being stuck in that room with the 2 parasite zombies and the 2 whitehead zombies kind of just closing in on me. Although being in here being ambushed by the hunters does make me wish I had a few extra mine rounds. I tried to save up as many of those as I could for this little incident, because they're not really going to be very useful in the next boss fight or the one after that, so this would be the perfect opportunity to get rid of all of them killing the hunters. Or if I got really lucky, maybe having 1 or 2 left over for the palehead zombies that still have to go through to get back into the room with the synthesizer. But that was never really the expectation. So yeah, the hunters in here, what I try to do is get 2 of them grouped together, then I use an acid round, and when there are 2 of them really close together, they both get hit by the round, the acid stuns them for a moment, and then I could finish them off using a mine round or a shotgun shell, something like that. What I was trying to avoid was just hitting one of them with the acid round, because then the other would still be active and I would have to account for that, and I wasn't doing as much damage, and it was just kind of wasting ammunition, which is a really bad thing to be doing in here, because I don't really have a whole lot left over and I really want to save those magnum rounds. And I just barely avoid that, getting by with just 1 pistol round left over. If I had to use my magnum rounds in there, I probably would have just reset, because I really need those for the boss fight. But yeah, back in here we still have 2 palehead zombies. I dodged the first one, I dodged the second one, and then the other one was still left in the hallway from earlier. I try to sneak by it, but it becomes active just in time to lunge at me, but I just barely dodge it, which leaves only 1 zombie remaining at the top of the stairs. Easy enough, or at least it should be, and this really probably should have killed me, but I just barely button mash hard enough to get out of its grab and I do not die there. I genuinely do not know how, because I would say 98% of the time, that is a death.
To begin vaccine synthesis, place the materials in the chamber.
But yeah, I will take all the luck I can get. Healing items don't really matter at this point in the game. If I'm at critical health, I'm happy to spend those as long as I stay alive. After all, I do have a surplus of them. But yeah, we combine the vaccine ingredients, we put them in the machine, and the order is going to be mid, high, low.
Synthesizing vaccine.
Yes.
Synthesis complete. Please remove the vaccine canister.
Okay, time to heal up and load up for the next boss fight, which is going to be the thing that's been my biggest roadblock going forward. Now this box right here can contain 1 of different items. I get the ideal item that I wanted here, which is the explosive A, but you could also get explosive B, regular gunpowder, and high-grade gunpowder. I like explosive A because with the exact combination of explosives that I have, that allows me to get a few extra fire grenades and regular grenades, which are going to be very important. There's a trick to cycling through your grenades that can help you get through the boss, so I want as many grenades as I can possibly get. And then with the combination of gunpowders I have left over as well, I didn't really want any of the other gunpowders, I feel like I have just enough magnum ammunition, but I could use some more shotgun shells, so I really didn't need any more high-grade gunpowder. And we have plenty of handgun ammunition, although I really don't want to be relying on that in the fight that we're about to be in. Although the handgun ammo is going to be super important for the final boss. But even then, I really only need like 50 rounds. But yeah, what really made this a big roadblock is that beating the boss does not necessarily mean that we've made it to the next save point in the way that I want to. Because like I mentioned earlier, I still want about 5 minutes left over to beat the final boss. So if I get through this next boss, but the time is over an hour and 55 minutes of in-game time, I basically have to reset and do all that over again and try to do it faster. Which is why this took days. I could die in the lab, I could die in the boss fight, or I could be successful in the boss fight but still not have enough time to beat the final boss. I was really shooting for a scenario where everything lined up just right. I did this so many times that every single item had an assigned place in my inventory just to make sure I was not forgetting anything. I had it memorized to the point where everything had to be in just the right spot. And upon review, I had all the grenades, I had the magnum ammunition, I had the healing items, I had everything. And now, I have 5.5 minutes to beat Nemesis.
What do we have here?
Nicholai, don't! The city needs that vaccine!
More than I do. I don't think the wisdom I've been trying to impart on you is getting through. Now I know you can't put a price on life. But I'm in this business to get paid. So let's make a deal. You go down there, battle the Nemesis, and I'll recall it all and sell the combat data. Put on a good show, and maybe I don't need the vaccine. Agreed? Good!
Starting off, I always fire a flame round at Nemesis to interrupt his first attack, and then I use up all the shotgun shells I have left while he is on fire. Once I am empty on the ammunition, I just have to kind of survive and dodge all the way until I get underneath the tower number 2. Underneath tower 2, we get 16 shotgun shells, and those are going to be very important for getting some meaningful damage on Nemesis here in his very first phase. I just continue to dodge and avoid Nemesis so I get the opportunity to reload. And once I have all 6 of the shotgun shells loaded up into the shotgun, I switch back over to the grenade launcher, I fire one more flame round at Nemesis, and I use all 6 of those shotgun shells on him, and that should bring him down, taking us to phase 2.
Jill, is that you?
Carlos?
You're okay. Let me spot for you.
Good idea.
Dodge forward immediately, and sometimes the roar won't stun you. Then it's time to get Nemesis stuck in a loop. Fire a flame round immediately after the roar, that stuns him and sets him on fire, then switch to the explosive rounds. I will fire 3 explosive rounds before switching back to the flame rounds. At about that time, the flame on Nemesis should extinguish, and then you can stun him and set him on fire again. Then we just keep repeating the process, and Nemesis is going to be stuck taking damage until you run out of ammo. Now there is a trick to this, because the full reloading and ammo switching animations take too long. And because of that, with full animations, Nemesis can get away. To avoid that, we have to do the trick I was mentioning. You will notice that Jill's grenade launcher reloading animation is still going even after the ammo in the bottom right corner of the screen is full again. So when looking at the bottom right corner, as soon as you see it is full, interrupt the animation by switching to another weapon and then switching back. Switching weapons like that is faster than the reloading animation by itself, and since you are able to fire the grenades faster this way, it allows this loop to work and you can just do continuous uninterrupted damage to Nemesis. Now I am nearing the very end of these cycles, like I only have enough rounds for maybe one more cycle, switching back to the flame round, then switching back to the explosive rounds, and at that point I'm basically going to be out of explosive rounds. I might have one left over. But regardless, I managed to do a bunch of damage to Nemesis that he could not defend against, and I was completely risk-free, there was nothing else around me to hurt me. But unfortunately, now that I have to let him go, that is going to change. because now that he can start running around more, that means the additional zombies can start entering the field as well. And I would say the zombies are what gets me killed more than Nemesis, because Nemesis has a few attacks that can kill you in one hit, but most of them just lower you all the way down to critical health, so you have the opportunity to heal. With the zombies, however, I kind of struggle to break their hold before they kill Jill, so anytime they grab me, it's pretty much a death. And even if it's not a death, just them holding you in place for a little bit gives Nemesis the opportunity to hit you as well. And the combination of the two is definitely going to kill Jill. So yeah, doing all that uncontested damage to Nemesis early on is very useful, and now this is where things get a little bit tricky. For some additional big damage, I went ahead and used the Lightning Hawk, but I stopped using it whenever I only had 8 rounds remaining. I need those 8 rounds for the final boss of the game, there's no way around that. So while the Lightning Hawk helped out a little bit here, it's no longer going to see any usage until the next fight. And then I switched to the shotgun and started doing damage with it as well. But I'm basically out of rounds for it too, so I am in a pretty tough spot having to switch to the pistol. And I was just left hoping that I had done enough damage with everything else to where it was not going to take a bunch of bullets to kill him. Unfortunately, it does take a good amount before Nemesis goes down, and I was left running around the arena trying to avoid the zombies and avoid Nemesis. Now whenever Nemesis is running around and he gets on the towers, the moment Carlos is warning Jill, regardless of what he says, as soon as he says something, you need to dodge. Because that is when Nemesis is dive bombing onto Jill, and that's one of the few things that can kill her in one hit. Additionally, if you're trying to avoid zombies like I ended up having to do towards the end of the fight, try to run around and line them up in front of Nemesis. A lot of the times he will run through them and hurt them for you and kill them for you, that way they are no longer an obstacle. Granted, that's unintentional, but we're going to try to use Nemesis to our advantage with that one. And considering how this boss fight comes to an end with me just barely having enough ammunition with a pistol to win, I needed every single advantage I could get. Like right there, I got taken down to critical health and I no longer have any healing items. I had to use the healing spray a moment ago even though I really wasn't hurt that bad, but even though I was only missing a little bit of health, pretty much any attack that Nemesis could have thrown at me with that little of a life deficit still could have killed me. So I had to make sure I was back to full health, and it's a good thing I did considering he just knocked me into critical health. So if I had waited, that definitely would have been a death. From here though, that meant I had to play this almost perfectly, dodging everything that Nemesis threw at me, and being really smart about how I used the final amount of my handgun ammo. Fortunately, Nemesis ended up running on the walls, which meant I had the opportunity to shoot the buttons on whatever tower he stopped on, and that allows Carlos to intervene for major damage. And that ends up being just enough damage to finish off the fight.
Jill! Here comes a crane. Use it to climb up.
Oh no. Come on. Come on!
Jill, stay back! Now get on! I'm gonna melt this fucker into mush. Okay, I'll meet you up ahead.
Nicholai, where did you go? I have to get that vaccine back.
After checking the time I have left, I see that I have 5 minutes to beat the game. So I finally beat the acid bath version of Nemesis in the time frame that I wanted. So while in this room, I go ahead and pick up some more handgun ammunition, I heal myself, I take a look at a document that's talking about a powerful railgun, so we are already being clued in on a weapon that we are going to be using in the final fight, and because the very next fight is going to be the very last one, while in this room I also make sure to save for the 5th and final time. So with 5 minutes remaining, having saved for the final time and pulled all the ammunition that I'm going to need in order to win this fight, all I have to do is beat Nemesis one final time.
It's done. Give me the vaccine, you greedy son of a bitch.
No. You bring him up. I like her. We shall make ours an ongoing arrangement. Now drop the gun! Have you ever seen anything so incredible? The data on this would be worth millions. But, you know how it is. City's about to explode, and you can't put a price on life. Good luck!
Nicholai!
Jill!
Go after Nicholai! He's got the vaccine!
What about you?
We're running out of time. I've got this.
I know you do.
Look, just so you know, this is the last fucking time.
Opening compartment.
Now we're talking.
Cooldown in progress. Please reactivate power sources.
Damn, it needs power.
So yeah, this boss fight really sucks, I died a lot, and I have a lot to say about the battle overall. You are about to see a few of the failed attempts going on in the background as I explain my game plan and how this fight works. The simple explanation for this fight is that you need to shoot all the glowing pustules on Nemesis. If you do that, he is going to be stunned long enough for you to push the power cores into place, and those are needed to power up the railgun. Stun Nemesis as many times as needed in order to position the power cores into place and use the railgun to win the fight. Now that probably sounds simple, but no. This is the absolute worst fight in the game. I actually feel like it's the worst boss fight in the entire Resident Evil series. Because in Inferno mode, every single attack from Nemesis is going to be a one-hit kill. So we have to win the fight without getting hit a single time, a ridiculous feat considering that Nemesis is going to be throwing multi-hitting attacks at you, and he is going to try to hit you double-digit numbers of times before this fight is over. I actually probably should count up the number of times he tried to hit me whenever I was successful and did beat him, because it's a lot. And speaking of those attacks, there are 6 different types of attacks that Nemesis is going to throw at you that I'm aware of. And like I said, most of those are going to be multi-hitting, and the timing for those attacks can even be changed by Nemesis, making dodging them a terrible task. Like at times it feels like there's no consistency. And of those 6 different attacks, 2 of them are nearly guaranteed kills against me because I never figured out how to consistently dodge them. And that was even after I had been doing this fight for several hours. And that statement by itself is wild. Earlier in the game, it would take me hours to get through large spans of the city without dying, and that would maybe be about 30 minutes or more of in-game time. This fight, however, took me hours to finish, and it only accounts for about 5 minutes of in-game time, and that is wild to me. So let's talk about the attacks. I always start the fight by running to the left side of the room. That will usually, but not always, have Nemesis leading with 6 ground pound punches. This is arguably the easiest attack to dodge, and I love seeing it. Nemesis will continuously hit the ground. On the 5th punch, I run a little bit forward and then I dodge forward. And that will allow me to avoid the 6th and final punch with a perfect dodge into a position where I can shoot multiple pustules before his next attack. Nemesis will commonly follow up that attack with his side sweeps. That is where he just drags the arm closest to you across the ground. Then he will drag the arm on the opposite side of the room, and then he will drag the first arm one more time. These are really consistent and the speed of the sweeps never seems to change. To dodge these attacks, we kind of need to be far back enough to where you're basically dodging into his palm. After I dodge the first sweep, I can start shooting the pustules because his second sweep on the other side of the room, normally it's not going to be close enough to me to hit me. I just need to be ready to dodge the 3rd and final sweep. And if you do that, you need to be ready to immediately dodge again because every single time after the 3rd and final sweep, as soon as that third sweep misses you, Nemesis is going to start 3 ground slaps. The 3 ground slap attack is pretty consistent overall. The first slap is always with Nemesis's left arm, and it is really fast, so you need to dodge immediately. The second slap, however, that's going to be with his right arm, and it is going to be delayed. So you have to wait a moment before dodging again. If you dodge too soon, you're not going to be able to react again in time before the slap hits you. Now, I don't really have great advice for timing the dodge on that second slap. I just tried this fight so many times that I eventually developed my own mental cadence for it. So you will probably need to figure out your own timing for it as well. Then there is the third slap. Again, this is going to be with his left arm. I do not really have statistics to back this up, but the majority of the time, the third slap is another really fast slap. So you will normally need to dodge it immediately. Every now and then, though, it felt like he was delaying that slap. Now that may have been my imagination, but there were definitely times when I somehow dodged too soon, and I could not react again in time before Nemesis hit me on that third slap. So most of the time I just found myself anticipating that the third slap was going to be a fast one and I dodged immediately, and that normally worked out. But sometimes I did find myself in a situation where I dodged too soon, so he might be able to delay that final slap. Now I don't have any footage of this next attack because it rarely happened to me, and that might be just because of the plan I was using to try and beat Nemesis, but he also has a forward lunge attack. If you see this, I believe you can dodge forward or dodge backwards to avoid it, but you can't dodge left or right. Now if you dodge forward, I think there is still a good chance he hits you, but if you are successful, you will have clearer shots at the postules as a follow-up attack. But I think if you dodge backwards, I think that one's more consistent, but your shots are mostly going to be blocked by Nemesis's arms. But I don't really have too much information on this one because it rarely came up whenever I was playing through this fight. So yeah, those are the first 4 types of attacks, and then there are the 2 bullshit attacks. Even if you somehow survive everything else that Nemesis threw at you, there are these 2 attacks that he can basically do at any time, and they kill me about, say, 90+% of the time. The ironic part of that is one of them is actually a non-damaging attack. Nemesis has a roar that he can do to stun you, and you seemingly can dodge just as the stun ends to avoid his quick follow-up attack, but I never figured out how to do it consistently. I had very few successes, and what few I did have, they did not really give me too much to go on. Like, I was dodging in different directions, so it wasn't a directional problem. I didn't see any cues from Nemesis that he was about to do the roar, and on one occasion I even somehow managed to dodge through the roar. So the roar did not impact me whatsoever, but that might have been a glitch. Regardless though, I really don't have any advice for this one. The best way to survive Nemesis's roar is for him to just not do it, because it is actually not guaranteed for him to ever do this attack during the fight. It is definitely, if not the most uncommon attack, one of the most uncommon attacks, but it is still very lethal. And then there is the last one, which is a little bit more common, but it's also not guaranteed to happen. That is going to be his 5 to 8 ground slaps. This attack is his most random one, and I do not know how to predict it. I ended up just guessing and dying the majority of the time. What I do know is the first 4 slaps are all very rapid, so you need to be dodging immediately. But after number 4, it seems like one of these slaps is going to be delayed, and you just have to guess which one it is. Making matters worse, I've seen this attack go like 7 or 8 times, but I've also seen it end after only 5 slaps. So the number of slaps is also random, and on top of that, one of the latter slaps is going to be delayed, and that is also random. So yeah, this attack is bullshit. Like with the roar attack, the very best way to survive is to get a fight where he just does not do it. Other than that, the best counter I came up with for this is I found myself near the power core on a couple of occasions whenever this attack was happening, and if you time it right, you can start to grab the power core before he hits you, and that is going to end his attack, regardless of what number of slaps he has done. That's because touching the power core forces Nemesis to abandon any attack, and whenever he does that, he tries to grab you for an instant kill. The first time he tries to grab you though, he does it very slowly. But if you try to touch the core a second time, the grab is going to be much faster and you are not going to be able to run away before he grabs and kills you. Although the speed at which he tries to grab you can be reset, but it requires you to pop all the postules. So you can technically do this trick again, but you are basically limited to doing it 1 time per round. Using the core to reset Nemesis is a really great tool, so it's not just a one-off thing for the 4 to 7 slaps. and it is not just a great tool for preventing annoying attacks, it also leaves him somewhat defenseless for a moment, so he's open for shots at his pustules. This is super important, especially to my plan whenever I'm trying to close out a round and shoot the last 1 or 2 pustules he has. On that note, what exactly is my game plan for this brutally unfair boss? Well, I start off using the 3-round burst pistol. 3 pistol rounds are enough to burst a pustule, so the 3-round burst is perfect. And the magazine is just big enough to where if I don't miss excessively, I can hit every single pustule without having to reload. Which trying to reload will basically get you killed if you do not time it really well. I also always start this fight by running to the left. This normally initiates the 6 ground pound punching attack that he has, and perfect dodging the last one lets me shoot 3 to 4 pustules. At the very least, it normally allows me to take out all of them on the left side of the room. And after these 6 ground pound punches, what I really want to see is Nemesis doing his side sweep attack. After I end up shooting those first 3 or 4 pustules on the left side of the room, I normally have just enough time to dodge the very first sweep. And after dodging that first sweep, I can normally shoot 1, maybe 2 pustules. That's if I happen to miss one on the left side, and I can usually also shoot one on the right side. Because of where I am positioned in the room whenever shooting at the pustules, the second sweep should miss me, and I should also have enough time to dodge the third and final sweep. Like I mentioned before, as soon as you dodge that third sweep, you need to dodge again immediately. Because the 3 ground slap attack is going to begin as soon as you dodge that third sweep, and you're not going to have time to do anything else other than dodge that attack, otherwise you are going to die. And after dodging that second slap, I dodge immediately again because the third slap is usually a fast one. And ideally, after perfect dodging that third slap, that is going to leave the pustules on Nemesis's chest open. If I end up breaking those, that usually only leaves 1 or 2 pustules on the right side of the room, and if that is the case, I can just touch the power cord to reset Nemesis and break those last pustules before he can do anything to me. And that is going to end the very first round. Now the next part is going to be super important. Surviving 3 of these rounds basically sounds impossible to me, so I want to make sure this fight only goes for 2 rounds. But we have to get 2 cores into position while Nemesis is down after the first round in order to do that. To make that work, you have to position yourself so as soon as you break the last pustule in the first round, you can immediately start pushing the core into place, so you have to be standing right next to it. And as soon as that first core is in position, run forward immediately to the closest core. Dash into it and start pushing it into place. Nemesis will start waking up before you are done with that core, so be ready to dodge out of there as soon as it is in place. And after you do that, switch to the Lightning Hawk. I saved exactly 8 bullets just for this. I wanted a full magazine with this weapon so I could one-shot the pustules in the second round. Besides the Lightning Hawk having rounds powerful enough to bust the pustules in one shot, they also have the penetration necessary to shoot through Nemesis's arms, so he can no longer block my shots. His 6 types of attacks are going to remain the same in the second round, but they can basically happen in any order. It's a lot less consistent. You just have to react as best as you can and use the powerful Lightning Hawk to end the second round as fast as possible. Then once Nemesis goes down for the second time, all you have to do is push in the very last power core. Then victory should be yours after what I'm assuming were several painful hours, but even then, it is still not guaranteed, as Nemesis can just wake up fast enough to hit you as you're running back to the railgun. So even after all that, you can still die very abruptly. All I can say is this fight really sucks, have patience, good luck, and deservingly cuss out Nemesis whenever you do finally win. Now I said I have about 5 minutes to beat the game, and if everything goes according to plan, this fight should only be about 3 minutes. That gives me 2 minutes to spare and I can just sprint my way to the ending credits. Alright, enough talking about how this battle works, what my strategy is, and showing off all the times I died. It is finally time. Let's see the one successful attempt I had. Let's see where I finally beat Nemesis and got the S ranking.
fucking hit! Good riddance.
Again, it is hard to articulate how much time passes whenever you just make no progress and you're just dying over and over and over again. Hopefully that long explanation kind of gave an idea of what that was like, because that was my very best attempt, and all the examples I had prior to that were the best attempts I had that were failures, but after I'd already developed my strategy. That's not even counting all the times I died just figuring out how this fight works. And even in the one successful fight I had, I still almost screwed up. The very last power core, you might have noticed I let go of it. That's because I was actually just trying to reset Nemesis. I still thought I had one postule left. But then I realized Nemesis fell to the ground, and then it was an oh shit moment. I have to hurry up and get this thing shoved into the wall as fast as I can. And fortunately, me letting go did not screw me over. I still ended up beating Nemesis. And okay, the very last document of the game. This is the suspicious contract memo. Contract overview. Received offer from client seeking to use RC Raccoon City Crisis to undermine and claim market share from UC, Umbrella Corporation, via a multi-pronged strategy. Sabotage UC's attempts to destroy evidence of outbreak to maximize culpability. Induce encounters between UC bioweapons and security forces / law enforcement. And collect combat data to ascertain viability of tech. Report deployment of any new bioweapons including Project N, Nemesis. See specifications. Remuneration exceeds current offer from UC and takes top priority. However, the client has agreed to a grace period before using any of the deliverables so that payment from UC can also be collected. So yeah, this is basically all the contract information from our treacherous buddy Nicholai. He was basically a double agent getting paid by Umbrella but also getting paid by some other unknown organization. His other employer was wanting combat data, so that's basically why he killed off all of his other comrades with the Umbrella forces, just putting them in unwinnable situations against the infected. But then of course there was the Project N stipulation of his contract as well, which is why he was so fixated on Jill and her encounters with Nemesis. And the most relevant thing for us right now is going to be the ruining of any attempts by Umbrella to cover up this outbreak or their responsibility for it. That's probably the main reason he went after Dr. Nathaniel Bard, killing him to try and keep the vaccine from getting out and covering things up. And that's why he was especially interested in the vaccine that we just synthesized. Could be something he sells to another party to get more money, or it could be something he just hands over to his current employer. That way it's something Umbrella cannot use. So there shouldn't have been any doubt, but if there was any, this kind of eliminates it. We fully understand that Nicholai is pretty much behind all the crazy shit that's been happening to us besides, well, Umbrella's culpability for the overall outbreak. Alright, enough of that. Let's go ahead and see how this game ends.
You're not going to stop. Promised you this, didn't I?
No! Do you have any idea what you've just done?
Oh no, don't care. My client ordered me to reduce Umbrella to rubble.
10 minutes until missile
Ah.
impact.
The missile has launched. And that is my cue. Goodbye, Miss Valentine. Shame you didn't listen to me when you had the chance.
Jill! Shoot him!
I can't! I'll hit you!
Do it! You have to! There's no other way. Take the shot!
She won't do it!
Carlos!
Hey, I told you I couldn't leave you in a Carlos's world. That would just be too cruel. What about him?
Why'd you do it?
There's a price tag for everything. Even letting the world burn.
Who are you working for?
I'll tell you, if you get me out of here. I'll pay you whatever you want. You're a fool. You're a fool! If I die, you'll never find out the truth.
I don't mind a little detective work.
Jill, you alright?
There he is.
Finally over.
So long, Marcy.
I felt empty and cold as the heat from the blast washed over us. All this death wasn't caused by a monster-making virus. It was greed. Human greed. I decided then and there, the ashes of Raccoon City would be Umbrella's ashes too. I would end them, once and for all.
Normally at this point the credits would be rolling, and at the very end of those we would get to see our results. Instead I am going to edit the video, that way the results show first, and after everything I just barely clock in with enough time to get the S ranking, just with a little bit over a minute to spare. I will take it. Full transparency, I forgot that I had to shoot Nicholai at the very end of the last cutscene, so that is why my crosshairs kind of just get stuck hanging to the left for a minute. Now, I don't know if you can fail the game by not shooting Nicholai in time, but that would have been a really embarrassing way to lose and then have to go back and fight Nemesis again. I mean, I would have been really, really frustrated. That last fight went about as well as it possibly could have. Every attack that I needed to happen occurred in the exact order that I wanted it to. And also the two attacks I did not want to see, they never came up. I have no idea how long it would take to get that lucky again. Fortunately, I'm not going to have to find out, and I can just chill and give my thoughts here at the end of the game while the credits start to roll here in a moment. So yeah, that was the Resident Evil 3 Remake's Inferno mode. I had very mixed feelings on this one initially, so much so that I delayed putting out these videos because I did not know if I wanted to play through the game on that difficulty because it just was not fun. Rather than being fun, Inferno mode is just a grind. Now it has some fun aspects, like figuring out the strategies for every area in the game. That part is kind of fun for me, I like figuring things out like that. But executing the strategies, that was exhausting. I did not keep count of all of my deaths in this game because there are just so many, but it is well into the triple digits before I end up beating the game. And because of that, the game just stops being fun for extended periods of time. That is especially true from the point that I first arrive in Nest all the way to the point that I actually beat the game, beating the final form of Nemesis. And yeah, final form Nemesis is absolutely the worst part of this game. I mentioned fighting him for several hours, but let's really break down what that means. A successful fight against Nemesis is about 3 minutes. For a fight to take several hours to beat but only really take 3 minutes to be successful, I would have to be dying in about a minute or less amount of time for a non-stop period of just hours. Like, the amount of deaths I cannot even fathom now, even having already done it. It was insane. And because of that, I really wish the creators just did something different with this fight, or maybe they could have just made Acid Bath Nemesis the final boss. At least that boss fight was fun. That one is mildly forgiving, and it's not always one hit killing you. Then you also get some other zombies in the mix, there is a co-op element with Carlos helping you, and there are also some fun mechanics where you get to use the environment against Nemesis. Just overall, that is a way more enjoyable fight compared to the final form of Nemesis. But during that stretch against the final form, I was just begrudgingly playing to beat the game. I was not playing it because I was enjoying it. That is really unfortunate considering how much I enjoyed playing the last 2 Resident Evil remakes. My aim with beating these remakes was to do so on their hardest difficulty without using stuff like the infinite ammo weapons. And so far, I have done that. With Resident Evil 1 and 2's remakes, I found that the hardest difficulty, while challenging, was still fun, even with my restrictions. Here at number 3, that hardest difficulty is not fun at all. I am very convinced that this mode was balanced with the expectation that you would use infinite ammo weapons. So I guess in a way, I was making this more unbearable than it needed to be, but at the same time, I find beating these games with the infinite ammo weapons really boring. So it seems regardless of what I chose to do, this just wasn't really going to be that fun regardless. But everything I just said, that only applies to the Inferno mode. I actually feel like one difficulty lower on the Nightmare mode, that one is almost perfect. Final Form Nemesis still sucks, but the rest of the game is pretty reasonable. It's a good challenge without being overbearing. It's definitely still brutal, but everything's not one-shotting you. Most of the enemies will nearly kill you, but you still have a chance to heal. And because you can heal, you have to be careful about when you use your items, which brings back some actual resource management, which is a good way of adding difficulty to the game without being really cheap. On Inferno mode, healing items really did not matter at all because most things were killing you instantly. I rarely found myself needing to use my healing items because of that, and I had plenty left over by the end of the game. I just liked how Nightmare mode still allowed me to make mistakes, but then try to win in spite of those mistakes. In Inferno mode, there are no mistakes. You either die or you don't. You have to be perfect basically the entire time, which invalidates the need for most healing items. And while thinking about that exact concept, I'm now realizing that in the previous game, the remake of Resident Evil 2, we actually had a solution. We had something that could fix this problem for us in very big fights. What I am thinking of is the blue herb. If you are not familiar with Resident Evil 2, there was an additional herb in that game that you could combine. And because of that, you could combine a green herb, a red herb, and this missing blue herb all together. And that combination would fully heal you, it would cure you of status ailments, it would make you temporarily resistant to status ailments, but most importantly, it would give you temporary damage reduction. And I am just now realizing how useful that missing item would be. Just being able to use that combination so you could survive a couple of hits from the final form of Nemesis, and then after surviving those you'd be able to heal in the middle of the fight, that would have made a huge difference. Suddenly that fight becomes a little bit more manageable, but instead here I was getting one-shotted for hours at a time. But yeah, that missing item would have been useful, and that's probably a pretty good transition point. There is something else that's not really in this game but was in previous games. And that was the option or the opportunity to backtrack to old locations. Like the remakes of Resident Evil 1 and 2, they encouraged returning to old locations later in the game, and using some items you picked up along the way in the mid-game, you could acquire some pretty rare items. You literally cannot do that in this game though. Resident Evil 3's remake is a long series of points of no return. It's basically broken up into levels. Now Resident Evil 1, it did not have a point of no return until the self-destruct sequence at the very end of the game. Resident Evil 2's point of no return did not come until you went down into Nest at the very end of the game as well. Here in RE3, you get one pretty early on. I think the very first one that happens is whenever you return to the subway after restoring power to it. You eventually go back into the streets of Raccoon City, but it's changed in a way that does not allow you to explore. So your first point of no return is really early in the game, like maybe 30 or 40 minutes into it. And I just think it would have been interesting to go back and see some old things and some people you haven't seen in a while. Like maybe go back and see how things ended up going for Dario Rosso. There is something else in Resident Evil 2 that is not number 3. and that kind of makes it feel like a downgrade, despite being a sequel. Resident Evil 2 had a bunch of different scenarios, like for instance for Claire and Leon, they both had their own first scenarios, and then after beating the game with both of them, or at least one of them, you would then unlock second scenarios for both of those characters as well, which means you got 4 entirely different playthroughs with unique bosses for each character. And if that was not enough for you, there's also even a bonus 4th survivor scenario, where you control Hunk the Umbrella agent, and you try to survive as him. And even after that, you got the Ghost Survivor scenarios as well. And in those, you got to guide characters who died in the main story, so that they would have alternate outcomes where they survived. Resident Evil 2 went out of its way to give you a lot of reasons to replay that game, and just check out a bunch of different scenarios. Resident Evil 3 does not have multiple scenarios. Now, the original game did not have multiple either, which made it the very first game in the series where you could not choose your character at the very beginning of the game. But I feel like that decision did not have to remain true in the remake. Like, we briefly got moments where we got to play as Carlos, and that was also true in the original, but we didn't have to be limited to just that all because that was how the original was designed. Imagine instead starting off the game as Jill, then you beat the game as her and you unlock a Carlos campaign. Then suddenly you have a second playable character that you could choose at the beginning of the game, and then you could play as him and get to see all the stuff that was happening whenever Jill was off doing something else or she was unconscious. Like, we could play as Carlos and get to see what he was doing in the Raccoon City streets before he had to save Jill from Nemesis for the very first time. We could see what the trip through Raccoon City to reach the police station was like for Carlos and Tyrell. We could see what it was like for Carlos trying to reach Jill at the clock tower. And then we could see what it was like for Carlos exploring Nest the entire day while Jill was unconscious. Like, there's plenty of other stuff that Carlos was doing in this game that could warrant a scenario too, and that would have increased the replayability of this game. But instead, we just get one scenario that really does not change even with the difficulty changes, and we can beat that in 2 hours. Now, I don't like to talk negatively about games in these videos, and I never really talk about games I don't like. I would much rather just play and do videos on games that I enjoy. And on that note, I do like this game. Even though I've been hard on it, I do like the game. But even so, this is a game where it's kind of split for me. So there was going to be some negativity. And overall, it is just the weakest of the 3 remakes that I have played. And even though I've been talking about negatives, there are positives here as well. So let's get into those. Just like with the Resident Evil 2's remake, this game looks excellent. The zombie models, they were mostly copied from RE2, but all the new characters and the cutscenes, they look great. The redesign for Nemesis in all of his forms, that also looks excellent. Just all around, I'm really enjoying seeing the new life that was brought into this game. And looking into the specific characters, I think most of them are improvements over how they were in the original game. Carlos is the biggest example I have of this, because I really don't care for the original Carlos. In the original, I found Carlos to be kind of whiny and unreliable most of the time. In the remake, he comes across much more competent and much more determined. And then there are characters who really just did not have a whole lot going on in the original, and now here in the remake they actually have some time to shine. The character I am thinking of whenever I say that is Tyrell. Tyrell was barely in the original game, but in the remake he's actually around a good amount of the time, and he ends up proving to be a pretty solid ally to Carlos at the police station and in the hospital. Mikhail experienced some changes that make him kind of a lateral move for me. In the original, his attitude is much more like how Marvin ends up being presented in the Resident Evil 2 remake. Like in the original, Mikhail was severely injured, and he is full of regret about his fallen comrades, which sounds a lot like Marvin. In this remake though, he's presented much more as the grizzled veteran who is just kind of trying to hold everything together as best as he can, even though it's kind of a losing situation. I feel like this still works out well for him, and it avoids being redundant with a character like Marvin. Brad dies almost immediately in this game. In the original, he lived longer, and it just does nothing for the plot, at least not in my opinion. So I'm okay with him dying sooner. Plus, with him dying sooner, that allows us to move on from him faster and go on to more meaningful characters like Carlos, which is something that took much longer in the original game. Jill pretty much remains the same, just being a tough main character, nothing really new there. Nicholai is a treacherous asshole in the original as well, so also nothing new there. So yeah, I would say most of the characters in this game are an improvement over their original versions. And if they are not an improvement, they're definitely not worse. Another positive is actually connecting plot elements from Resident Evil 2. It is cool seeing how Carlos's actions directly influence how Leon and Claire could travel through the police station. Like, there are parts of the police station that were destroyed in Resident Evil 2 and you don't really know why. Here in RE3, we get some answers to that, and the answers are pretty much just Carlos. In fact, that whole police station section of the game is probably my favorite part of the game. It is either that or the hospital. And as short as the game is, I actually do think it's paced better than the original. Like, back in the original, it starts off with Jill just jumping out onto the streets from a burning building with basically no context. We get the explanation for the burning building. It is all explained through the Jill's apartment section of the game. And even though I would love an option to skip the apartment, that section does help explain what Jill has been doing, who she is, and why she's fleeing into the street. It does this way better than the original. And by doing this, we also get introduced to Nemesis immediately and in a much better way. Back in the original Resident Evil 3, it took a while for Nemesis to show up, and it kind of happens abruptly or randomly. Like, it's a really tense moment, but it still just feels random. The remake sets up our game-long rival earlier, and it feels less random after reading all the documents in Jill's apartment, which establish her as a target of Umbrella. So all around, I feel like that's just handled better. Oh, and also we get the return of the Hunters in this game. Hunters are kind of the neglected enemy in Resident Evil, often in favor of the Lickers. And I personally prefer the Hunters, so it is great to see them back and looking really good. These guys just need way more love, so please put them in more games. So yeah, I think that covers all of my main talking points for Resident Evil 3's remake. I did enjoy the game, I just didn't enjoy it as much as the previous two. It's still fun except for the hardest difficulty, which is definitely bullshit. And overall the game could use some more reasons to play it again. Still, it was a cool experience playing through it and recording the gameplay for these videos. I am glad I was masochistic enough to prove to myself that I could beat this game with the S ranking without using any of the infinite ammo weapons or the shop items. It was a terrible grind, but it was also kind of a cool accomplishment. I am happy I did this. And yeah, I guess I'll just go ahead and give a final fuck you to Nemesis. And we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to check out the other things I have on the Thor's Entertainment channel. I do have plenty of other Resident Evil stuff just like this, playthroughs of the first remake, the second remake, and yeah, here we have the third remake. I also have playthroughs of other video games on there as well, so feel free to check that out if it is interesting to you. No matter what you do though, thank you for watching the video for this long. Take care. Hopefully I will see you next time.